Now that we're at the spray bay, we can have a nice look over it. What I've done is I tidied up some more rescribing underneath, and you'd see those changes of colour, but that's literally I just changed some paint over and done it like that. But you can see by putting the blobs in there, you can still paint all around them, so it's the way we'll do it in a moment when we come to put on the proper colour. So we're quite happy with the way it's all looking. We've got no nasty lumps, bumps and joints and all the rest of it, and we're all quite nice and smooth on the finish. So what we can now start doing is adding all the lumps and bumps that go on this, that sort of personalise each aircraft. Now the thing is, this one we're doing here, we're doing it in the sort of in a war theatre, the ones that are out in Afghanistan at the moment. So what it is, it's certainly going to be mission specific to the lumps and bumps that are all on these, i.e. radar warning receivers and bits and pieces like that. So if you're building a different version of it, check your references of a particular aircraft, because sometimes you see one photo of them, then another one, and they are totally got bits and pieces all over it which are different. On this particular one, there's lots of references that I've got on the disc here and on the site, and it shows the radar warning receivers, the missile launch receivers up on the top here. We've got them also underneath the nose, to the rear, and all over it. So there is a few lumps and bumps. Some of them are in the kit, others you might have to scratch build or certainly adapt. The ones that come in this particular kit for the D, we're going to be using parts 33 and 32. They're basically the right shape and everything we need. They're the right sort of to scale and everything. They're just a little bit too long. So what I'm going to do is sand these off a little bit and place them on. But this is one of those things, as I say, check your references and go through it, because they are type of sort of aircraft specific to how they actually are. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go around and put on parts 33, 32 and a couple of the other lumps and bumps that go on this one, and then I'll run around afterwards once they're all on and show you where I placed them and how I did it. Right, so if I just talk you through basically what we've done. For this particular version, as I was saying, this is going to be the RAF H2, basically A2 type. So that has different lumps and bumps all over in configurations. So what we've actually got, if we talk about the big things first, we've got the steps that we made earlier. They're now on and looking good, so no problem with those on. Literally super glued, bit of CA glue on and tacked into place just like that. We've got these little lumps just down here. We've got these little vent parts that go on. Check your references for the locations. They go on like that. We've also got these little vents, 3 vents running along the side, same type of thing. We've got this little bump here underneath the gun door, which is that one, no problem at all. We've got these big boxes which stick out the sides just like that. They're in and done, and obviously these skids underneath. And speaking of skids, we've got them on the back here. I made a bit of a faux pas on one of them, so we need to tidy up and respray that. That one's all done just like that. We've got the receivers at the front here too. All I did was take them down a little bit, as I spoke about. On the front we've got the other seeker here, and on here the detectors. They're all on now. I haven't put any of the little bits on the bottom yet, because they're likely to get pinged off during spraying and things like that. So what I'm going to do is spray the whole thing as a whole and weather, and then we'll attach them afterwards, purely because they're going to be so little fiddly aerials and things like that. I'm worried about losing them, so we take care of them. Now, round here at the back, we've actually got some more seekers, which are up with these missile detectors up at the back. We've got one at the back. Now, these lumps and bumps you can see here, that's just made out of a little bit of leftover resin block. I always keep them, come in very, very handy. Let me just show you one here. What you actually have, I'll just pop one out here. We've got here an F-16, which is probably not a good one. Let's just pick up another set I just happen to have here. We've got in here the cast blocks, as you can see, with this very dusty old, what have I got here? An F-18 Hornet. But you've got the block underneath the ejector seat, the block on the front on there, and it's a great medium to work with because it's easily sandable. Remember though, this is resin, it's pretty toxic and nasty stuff, so if you are doing it, make sure you're outside is preferably the best, or if you've got an extractor you can run a hoover next to it just like that, or pop a mask on just to stop those resin little bits getting into your lungs, because really it's not nice and it's not worth taking the risk. You know, once or twice you could probably get away with it. If you're doing it for sort of, you know, 60 years, perhaps your entire length of your hobby or something like that, it's gonna, you know, mess you up in the long run. So just be careful with resin. You know, the dust, things like on my desk here, I had loads of dust and bits and pieces. A couple of wet wipes, baby wet wipes, wipe it all down, keeps it all out of the way, wash my hands afterwards and things like that. And when I am sanding, I usually pop on my little mask, which we got right here. got this, just pop it on for just doing it. It's just for 2 minutes and then we're done. So just remember, safety first. Okay, so that's those bits done and we're looking quite good. A couple of little tidy ups. To be honest, I misplaced these boxes here. I brought them too far forward, they needed to go back, so we've done that, we've put that on. I've got to rescribe up this bay, which is the one, if I bring you in, it was the first bay we did actually, but unfortunately I've decided to close it up, so I sanded and filled it and put it all in as we spoke about with a little bit of CA glue. So all I've got to do is just rescribe that panel back in there, but really we're just about there. The only thing I haven't put on is obviously the sand filters, which we're going to scratch build those in a moment, and then down here we're going to have on the back here will be the infrared missile detector and the blinder system, which is a little thing you see on helicopters. Used to be a disco ball in the old day we used to call them, but basically it'll blind the missile as it's approaching the actual aircraft. But there we go, that bit is now really sorted out and done. These undercarriages, they're not fixed at the moment, they're just poked in really so it doesn't sit on its belly all the time. Now the other thing we can do is the rotors. He says, and for some reason I've only got two. There's a third. There should be a third round here somewhere, but literally pretty easy to do. Clean up. It's easier to run a knife down the edge of these rotors to get rid of the seam line that comes between them. So this one hasn't been done. All you do, push it down to clean up those bits, just like that, and just run it down the length. And then all I did to get a slight curve on them, placed it over my thigh and bent it slightly just to give it a little bit of droop. But basically we're just going to go around and tidy up all these, and then it's straightforward. Glue these in place and then leave them off to one side to totally go hard, and then we can actually mount them on the aircraft. So if we got this one like we have here, that one's all done. And if we can pick this up, you've got the little square part which goes underneath. Now it only goes one way because you need it to go through the holes on here, and then all that will happen is that will sit on the top just like that and gives a very nice head like that. But obviously this is something that will be sprayed as a separate completely, because obviously in transit we want it so it can just sit on and it's done at the end of the day, but for transit it will just go like that. So really what we can do is get on now is get those rotor heads all done and sorted out. As I say, little aerials that run down the side, we're going to do them as an afterthought. We're going to go around, make sure we're happy where everything is. To be honest, I've got a few little lumps and bumps I've still got to go down here on the bottom, which I've got to do. I've got to make up these lights, which is going to be very simple. I'll show you how to do that in a minute with a little bit of plasticard and go around. And obviously we've got to get the door put on the bottom here. We're going to have it somewhat in the open position, but not fully. We're going to have it with the crane part down, with the door slid back. But there's lots of pieces going to go on the bottom, but I am really worried about knocking them off, so we do those as separate. So we just get those final parts on. Okay, so we'll continue to attach all these different bits, and really we're almost there. What I've actually done is you've got these squares which obviously hold up the little aerial mounts. This first one, what I've had to do is take it back down to plane level, because the RAF HC2 version has a blade one like in this photo here. Now to make that, what I'm actually using is part number 43E, which on your instructions apparently goes up on the roof. Now the thing is, we can replace the one on the roof a lot easier than doing this one, because this one has got nice little details of actually how it screws in various bits and pieces like was in that photo. So what we're going to do, we'll pop a little bit of liquid cement on the back of it, and all we're going to do is replace it, because it's exactly the same size and to scale that we're after. To cover this one here. Now we just pop it on there, and there we go. So that's on there, as you can see, like that, facing backwards. So you want it to go along those lines as the others do. And then what we're actually is, we'll then have them coming out, and we'll cut this as is needed to the right thickness once it's dried on, and it'll go back. The other little thing we've done is on the front here, we've got these square ones, which you can see in this reference photo here. Now that's very simple. It was just a square cut diagonally into shape and then placed up in there, and then to make sure they were square and flat so they're looking down, I presume they're probably radar altimeters, it's just literally sand them off with a sanding stick underneath just to flatten them off just like that. But that's really the last of them, of those little aerials and bits and pieces that we can do at the moment. We've got the other ones that can go in here, which we can fit along that side, but certainly we don't want to put the bar going across because it's all going to be black and we can paint them separate anyway. Oh, and the only other one I've done, just as I see it, is a little white piece of plastic card on the front here. There again, it's an aerial. You could do it afterwards with it black. It's just a thin piece of plastic card just stuck into the appropriate place, and away we go. So there we go, we're really all about ready. I've just got to put two more little missiles warning receivers on the back here that focus diagonally down to cover the rear. They've got to go on, yeah, but really we're into the position where we're all nicely sorted out there, and then afterwards we'll just pop round, pre-shade again, prime up again these little areas here. I'm just going to rescribe in that door now, and then we can get on with some pre-shading and get the first of the proper paint onto it. Okay, so the next thing we can do, we can start masking up. Now, these windows, you know, notoriously a bit of a problem, and last time obviously we put some blobs in, but having a quick fiddle round, I did come up with this idea, and as you can see, it was all nicely whited out. All it did, having a bit of a think about it, it really was the obvious answer. Okay, a bit of white paper, just got a sheet of A4 paper here. Okay, just got a strip, which is about, I don't know, 2 centimeters thick. And then all we're going to do is feed this down behind the seats inside, which then from the outside obviously whites it out. Now getting this down can be a bit of a tricky thing, so what I've got here is my needle scriber because it's got a bit of a point on it, and you can literally just slide it down, and then once you get it going it's quite straightforward. It's just push all the way through, and there we go. It basically goes all the way in, and being A4 it's just a touch too long. And there we go. I'm quite happy they're not going to blow in, or even if we do get a little bit of overspray in there, it's not really going to go far at all. So I'm quite happy to leave those bunged up just like that. Obviously we've got to do these areas here, which I'm going to do from the opposite side. I'm just going to push a little piece of actual sort of Play-Doh, or what we're going to use here is the white tack, through from the opposite side, just attach that in, and then this one here we're going to slip a little bit of cardboard just down in here to the top, which I think will take care of that, and then obviously the rear ramp will cover up the back of it. Now the rear ramp top part I've already glued into place here, so what we're going to do, literally I'm going to have this sitting just as a rough fit here, and at the back here I'm just going to have some kitchen roll just scrunched up in there, just stop any overspray getting in there. So that's pretty straightforward. So all we can do, have a final check round, all happy that everything's all in the right place. As I say, apart from the aerials, we're all done there. Then what we can do, we're going to give it a quick primer coat all over, as we'll do in a moment. And then when we come back, then we can start getting the pre-shading on, all ready for the top colours. Okay, so fan on, everything's on. Top just a second. Bit of a bung up the top with the old paint here, so we'll just give it a stab to release that. Okay, so we just got some Bolero here. It's neat straight out the bottom. What we'll do, we'll leave it sat here. Just spray up. And this is just light ghost grey we're using here, so it will show up everything particularly easy. But we're not worried too much about making this a perfect, this is just a primer. So all we do, we'll just work our way round the entire model. Like that. This will just give the paint something to stick to. Okay, so you can see the primer coat's going on. All we've got here is some light ghost grey, bit of the Bolero stuff. I'm just spraying in everywhere so we can just make sure there's no lumps and bumps we need to get rid of now. So we just dry that down. Just cut into air. It's quite a warm day today, so I'm not too worried about everything. So we're just drying this back, and we split this round. looks like so. We'll just top this up a bit more. There we go, we're all happy. It's quite a nice smooth finish to the paintwork. So we just let that dry a minute and then we just spray the underside, and then we can get on with some pre-shading where we can put the black lines in, which hopefully stand through. Okay, so as you can see probably in the background there up against the extractor, you can see we've sprayed the rotors. Now all we've done is I've got some black on the go. To be honest, this is tyre black, which is H77 guns, but basically it's flat black with a dab of grey. So if you wanted to use something like XF1 Tamiya, just put a drop of grey in it, it'll just lighten them up. So I've done the blades and they're sat back here drying. So all we're going to do now, let's check our flow. This is going to be quite a compressor on, quite a rough job. And what we're going to do is pre-shade now the actual Chinook itself. I'm just going to go around and pick out all these really big lines. Now it's one of those things that's going to be all over olive drab, so it's going to be quite a plain type of finish to it. It's not going to be like a nice combat colours and things like that, but we'll take care of doing some weathering to give it a sort of dusty look and all the rest of it. So what we're going to do, we're just going to pop round absolutely everywhere and just picking out all the bigger lines. We want to give some nice big heavy beauty pre-shading, more than we normally would, as you can see like this, because as I say it's a green, it's going to be hard to see. So we're just going to put this on pretty thick and run through absolutely everywhere. It doesn't have to be clean or nice or anything else like that. We want it to be as rough as we can make it, so it all shows through nicely. We'll do following along where we can. And as I say, we don't want nice perfect grids, we want some bit of a waviness to it and all the rest of it. It's my cop out, obviously, but I do really think it looks a lot better when they're a far rougher finish. So there we go, we're just down like that, and we're going to go all the way around it. We're going to do the underside as well, and absolutely everywhere. Right, so next door we can get on some paint. Just one little thing I've done, I've scratch built these chaff and flare dispensers, or in this case they're just a flare. What I've done, I've used the kit parts which normally go up here, just shaved them up to the boxes, and what we're going to do is detail them a little bit after it's been painted, but at the moment they're on there. Literally all it is, if I just bring you in a little bit, as you can see, all we've basically done, two boxes just against each other, underneath piece of plastic card, and then the little shim just underneath there as well, just to give us that type of effect. Also close this little door up as well. All pretty straightforward stuff. Sorry, wrong way with the zoom. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to spray this in basically your green. Now what we've got here is we're going to use Valero Model Air's 061, which is basically their sort of olive drab. It's green colour. I think the FS code for it off the top of my head is something along the lines, if we is going to be 34079. It's quite a nice green, but usual thing is we're not going to stick totally to this, we're going to lighten it to do some types of weathering and various bits and pieces. So as I say, I haven't bothered covering up these two little holes here because they're going to spray to be detailed separate, so what we can do is mask around them, spray those afterwards. But we want to get the main base colour on so it can be drying, and then after that what we're going to be doing is going around and just basically touching up all the little bits, super detailing by changing the paint, and then we can get all those little bits and pieces all over it. So what we do, we just fire up the compressor, and then obviously this is, you can use it neat straight out of the bottle, but with all mine I usually just give them a tiniest bit of X20A. Another reason for doing that is that it's quite a warm day today. Literally just got a few drops in the bottom of the colour cup, and we just come along and we're going to basically fill it up. Now the reason, as I said, for just giving it a couple of drops, it's a warm day, and X20A, as most of the thinners, I think Mr. Colour Thinner has it as well, got a little tiny bit of retarder in there, which just helps things spray a lot easier. So I just, good old mix, just like so. So we'll just pop that over here and just test our spray. Pattern we're quite happy with. Extractor going on. All a bit noisy, and all we're going to do, we'll just start on the underside. We're just going to dust on a light coat first. We're all primed up, so you could go in quite heavy if you wanted to, but from this point of view we're just going to go in quite lightly. Coming back again. The other thing as well with thinning your actual paint like that is what you actually happen is, you can see there the pre-shading shows through a lot better. And all we do, we just build up that layer, cut to air to dry off, because you don't want it to be too wet. I've got this rear part still open, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to shoot it this way. If you can't see it, you won't get any overspray really in there. So all we do, we'll just bring that back. Nicely over it. And as you see, you still see the pre-shading showing through, and as it dries, it will show through even more. So what we can do, we can then just start on the front. And this is just quite a light dust over to start with. And we're just going to spray everywhere with one coat first, so the pre-shading all shows through quite a lot. There we go, we're just getting there now. We're sort of changing the colour nicely. So we just come up to the area. And as you can see now, I'm basically to where I hold. So we just dry off the bottom and give that another coat. And then we can start putting this down. So there we go, that's probably 4 ml of paint sprayed on there now. So what we're doing, we're cutting to air and just drying off, mainly around the front end where I've just finish that heavier area. Okay, we just dry down. We'll just dry off this bottom, and then what we do, we'll let that stand just for a minute so I can hold it elsewhere. And then what we'll do, we'll come back and just build up the coat until we can just about see the pre-shading coming through still. Right, okay, so our Chinook is totally dry now. So what we've actually got is just the green again, which is the 016. And what we've done is put a couple of drops of the very light grey, which is their equivalent to light ghost grey, which is 050, just in to lighten it up into the colour cut, and about 3 drops of thinners in there. So what we do, we're just going to blow through till we get to the paint that we need. And it should come through any second a little bit lighter. There you go, we can see the difference down here between the two. Usual thing with this, all we're going to do is pick out the middles of panels to somewhat lighten it up. So literally we're going to start on the top here and we just run all the way through. So all we're going to do, just centres of the panels. Not turning off the spray, as you can see, we just carry it through. Some little misty bits in there. So all we're doing is really bleach affecting, giving it a sort of bleach look in the middle of these panels. So it's pretty random. As you can see. So what we're trying to do is break it up a bit and get rid of this block of green. then obviously as you go around, so I don't know if you can see that well on the camera, but you get that sort of patchy sort of look to it. So the pre-shading that we put down looks a little bit darker. Now if I just get the old compressor going a bit, because we're losing pressure, because we want quite a high air pressure for doing this. All we do once we put that on is just going to go round, let's give a little bit in here, just like that, and then all we're going to do is literally put a dusty coat on the top just to help blend it all in, all a little bit. And then obviously just pop round, pick out areas on this side, just like that. And then obviously we've got to do these bits down here, so we're going to get quite a bit, because obviously these top areas you'll see a lot more of the bleaching effect than perhaps some of the other areas. As I say, just stay away from your panel lines quite as much as you perhaps would do. Don't worry about doing the underside obviously for this, it's just the top thing. And it will just hopefully give it a little bit more depth to the paintwork and just get it like to this type of thing. So all we're doing is really just breaking it up a little bit. So we just continue down the front here, just around here, perhaps down on the nose section. Don't worry if it looks a little bit stark at the moment, it will soon bleach down and all the rest of it. And then, as I say, nice little blast all over it, and that will be our nice bleaching effect, just like so. So we're not going to worry about the underside, we're just on the top side, just to give us this sort of bleachy look. So what we'll do, we'll let that all dry off nicely, just like that, and then we'll have a look at the finish. If it's a nice finish, what we can actually do now is actually get the decals onto this, get them in place, sorted out on there, then we can come back and then we're going to go around and paint up all the little interior bits and pieces and things like that. Okay, so as you can see, we've moved on a little bit, just bringing you up to speed here. What we've done, I've just painted white inside these little interesting areas, which are the little electric bays. Done that, and we've done black in this one in here for the refueling rig. We're going to go around and detail those in a moment, which I'll show you when I do other bits of painting. Deckled, only a few on this, to be honest, because when you look at the reference photos of the real ones, there isn't that many on there. Obviously factory fresh will be covered in them. When it's been through maintenance a bit, they do tend to calm down. As you can see, we've masked up this top area here, which are basically the anti-slip walkways. Now there is decals for doing this, but the trouble with them is that, you know, they're not very authentic, and getting them to lay in there, when you look at the real things, they're scuffed and chipped and pulled and generally worn down. So what I was going to do is do it myself. Now to do that, what I'm going to use is some tyre paint. Black, which is H77 from the guns range. You could use just some normal Tamiya flat black and then just add a couple of drops of grey to it. Now what we're going to do, this isn't going to give that effect so much of being dead flat finish, but what it will do, it says stuck in there, but what it will do, it will just give us the right colour we need. And then what we can do when we go around to the painting stage of things, we can put a little bit of extra flat in that area just to give it that better look. What we've got here, quite a high air pressure, neat paint going into the colour cut. Now we're not going to need much, so as you can see we've just got it in there like that. Now check your flow, because if you've got any thinners in there, we need to get that out of the way. So as you can hear, it's struggling because it's actually having trouble getting it through. And then what we're going to do is, obviously I've only lightly masked this because I'm going to keep it roughly in the area, but if your spraying pattern's a little bit faded, shall we say, and a bit over the top, you might want to mask a little bit more. But what we're going to do is just generally walk this down in the area and give it a nice rough texture. And you can hear the airbrush is really struggling to get this out. Some of these rear ones. And this is what we want it to do. We want it to struggle and have a hard time trying to do it. So in that way we know we're getting a nice rough finish to it. There we go, we just got this front one down here. And as the air pressure dies off, keep spraying, because as it goes it'll get more gritty your paintwork. As you can hear, it's really going now. So you can have a look, make sure you've got your, as long as you haven't got any green showing through, you'll be okay. So there we go, that's done just like that. Hardly used any paint at all. Now I've got to be a little bit careful with this because I've got paint on my fingers. So if we just roughly unmask it, just to have a look, we should have our nice walkways. As you can see, I used a little bit of trimming tape, which is the old jammy dog tape. Okay, this is just around that one there. I'll use some scissors just to hook this up. There we go. One like that. Just hook this under here, just like that. Put some scissors under here. Obviously avoiding scratching because we don't want to scratch the surface. And there we go. If we show you this side more of, you can see what we've achieved. Try getting this tape off. But there we go, we've got these nice flat areas on here now at the back, which you can see bending down, which is roughly how it is on the angle, and obviously the anti-slip walkway as it goes up. If we just unmask the other bits and pieces, we should have it nicely all done. So usually when we do this, it comes off in one, but not today. There we go. Last bit, and there we have it. Slipways all done, pretty much probably just as quick as it would take you to actually mask them up, and obviously doing it via decaling it. So there we go, those are in, and I think it's a lot better. And what you could obviously do, you could obviously pop round and do this by hand as well if you wanted to, but I think it just gives a lot better finish to it, just like that. So there we go, that's that bit done. And next what we're going to do is go around and colour in and detail all the little areas. The other thing we was going to do, we were on about these windows on here, and as you can see here, we've got one and I've sprayed it. Now the trick to this is to find yourself a, he says finding one, a cleanish cocktail stick. Here we go. Okay, then what you do, you just place it in, okay, and give it a whip round your glass work, just like that. Okay, and then just like a scratch card, what you do is just whiz it across. If I just do it roughly, but it will show you. Because we're using acrylic paint, you can just scratch it clear, which is great if you've got something like this. Let me just take the backing away. There we go, that's the window done. And then what will happen is, when this is totally finished off and been flattened down, this window will sit in here just like that, without the need of actually masking it. Quick little tip, that one, a great way of doing it. And what we'll do, we'll totally clean that up a little bit better. At the moment it's got a few bits on there, but it'll be a lot faster than actually doing them. So all we can do is you can just pop along, go up to your glass work, put a blob of blue tack on the back or you clear, spray it all, and then come back and scrape it clear for going on just like that. So what we'll do, we'll let this totally dry off, clear a bit of room, and then we're going to go around and we're going to detail all the little bits and pieces before giving it a flat coat.